Protecting Bali's disappearing forest, and Luhut says many foreign tourists are not quality. Stay tuned for more on this and other stories. Selamat siang. Welcome to the latest news from Bali in Indonesia. This is August 31st, last day of August 2024, and my name is Bruce. And what is the weather like today? Well, 28.5 degrees Celsius, very nice. And humidity 61%, and wind speed is 8.4 kilometers per hour. And my wife is out working on the gardening stuff, which is what I'm going to do as soon as I finish this video. And so today, actually, I'm recording two videos because this is going to be too long. And you might remember, if you've been around for a long time, I used to do 45-minute videos. So this is going to be done in two parts. I'm going to break it up, put one part today and one part tomorrow. And so tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about new requirements to enter Indonesia and about the golden visa and a few other interesting things that may affect you if you are here in Bali or if you are planning on coming here or anywhere in Indonesia, actually. Okay, so let's get started and talk about protecting Bali's disappearing forest, because this is a key issue here in what Bali is going to be like in the future. At this point, rapid development, people are building villas here and there, both foreigners and Indonesians, and new hotels and beach clubs and malls. And what is it that Bali is supposed to attract people? I was talking to a friend of mine from Taiwan the other day, and she said one of the reasons I love Bali is because of the culture and nature. She said, if they're going to put more malls and beach clubs, I can go to those anywhere in the world. They've got them in Thailand, they have them in Vietnam, they have them in Singapore, they have them in Australia. What would make Bali any different from those places? Why would I want to go there and not some other place? But if you monitor social media, you know that one of the things now is that Bali is getting known as a party island. Not the yoga island, not the spiritual island, but the party island. You see more and more videos about food, dancing, dating. These are all things that really have nothing to do with Bali, but can be done on vacation anywhere. So what makes Bali so special? Is it because it's cheap? Is it because there are lots of influencers that come here? What is it that draws people here? That's a good question. Okay, so let's talk about the disappearing forest. Bali is facing increasing pressure to convert land areas initially dedicated to conservation purposes to the new use designation of agrowisata, or agricultural tourism. As a result of this trend, tourism domination of previously untouched lands on the island contributes to Bali's denigration and destruction. It accelerates the extent and intensity of Bali's growing water crisis, which we've been talking about for a long time, but conveniently forgotten in the rush to develop this island. Bali's tourism is not an ideal state, according to Imade Iwan Dewantara, the manager for Conservation International Indonesia. He said this the other day. He said, "We are opening new areas for tourism by exploiting jungle areas. Where is the logic in this? Our land is being decimated and destroyed. The need for conversion of natural lands has become acute. There's a water crisis. What good does Bali derive from tourism? These developments contribute to the larger economy, but for what purpose if Bali's future is threatened?" Indonesia promulgated the Forestry Law number 41 of 1999 to protect and prevent the destruction of native land areas. As a result, many areas were declared as conservation forest areas. This allowed the nation to do what it likes in forested areas. How will the nation be able to manage this important natural resource for the people's and the country's benefits, said Dewantara. He continued, "The people have placed their faith in the country to manage the forest. However, in reality, the country cannot successfully manage its forest. People living in forest areas are being marginalized. This development has fostered a large number of cases of human rights violations. Examples of this dilemma can be found in Bangli, Kintamani, and Tamlingan, where on a normative level, areas initially declared as protected conservation zones are given over to limited use for tourism. For instance, a 10-hectare conservation concession grants the right to develop some 10 to 20% of that area for tourism purposes, with the balance left in its original protected state. While the nation wants to protect its forest and jungle, the reality is that it needs money. As a result, the local public's rights are ignored in these natural areas, said the well-known conservationist. Dewantara asked, if the government is truly serious in protecting conservation areas, why not transfer the right to operate these agro-wisata projects to the local people? Why must outside investors be allowed to descend into these zones when the law allows the local public to seek permission to utilize these resources? In reality, the public is never given this opportunity, he explained. He said that the need for money causes people's rights to be denied, with the resulting investment project damaging forests and trampling over the local public's interest. Finally, he lamented that the people no longer trust the government, arguing the case further. Dewantara contends that local populations, community groups, and academics must be called upon to conserve these areas and maintain their economic usefulness. Publicly expose what will be built in these areas, who is doing the development, and exactly what is being done. And you see more and more reports about this in the press, about a villa development that nobody really knew what was happening, no local people, because they had gotten permission from the outside agency, and suddenly people found out that they were being impacted in a way that they saw as being negative. And so you have demos and problems that come up, as Pak Luhut talks about in an upcoming segment, some tensions between local people and people from outside, both Indonesians and foreigners from other countries. Dewantara continued, to what extent are the interests of the local public benefited by these investments, and to what extent will the interest of the forest be protected and preserved? The conservation expert said that Bali's forest cover is not ideal and should constitute 30% of the land area. Meanwhile, government data estimates that only 23% of the land is currently forested, which is doubtful because many forest areas, he said, have no tree growth. In reality, the 23% figure on forested land includes areas such as Batur, with no trees or minimal forest growth. These forest areas include the slopes of Mount Agung, near the northeast side of the village of Kubu, which has few trees and is not the verdant forest scene we imagine. We have forested areas with no trees that do not function as jungle, he said. With Bali's less than ideal forest cover, it becomes critical that the remaining forested land be preserved carefully. No further diminishment of forest cover on the island can be allowed. Vacant landscapes must be reforested. Bali is a tiny island that is acutely sensitive to any change in its forested areas. Forests and jungles reabsorb water. If this absorption and natural recycling process is disturbed, the implication for all regions of Bali is a water deficit. And as I said, people have been talking about this, especially academics, for years now. Dewantara insists that existing forest areas must be protected and expanded to include traditional forest lands mandated by religious practice and considered part of the island's green cover. There are forest areas owned by traditional societies in Bali that should be declared traditional forest instead of protected conservation areas. If these lands are claimed as the property of the state, they then become vulnerable to decimation through investment projects. In addition to traditional forested lands held by villages, there are also gardens owned by the public and used to plant coffee and cloves. These gardens need to be expanded and given incentives so that they are safeguarded by the surrounding communities and preserved for those communities' economic benefit. So, wow, down to 23%. And our second main story today, Luhut evaluates several tourism points in Bali. Many foreign tourists are not quality. He said this before. Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment, Pak Luhut, highlighted the issue of the influence of foreign tourists in Bali. According to him, this has actually caused a series of problems in Bali. He considered that most foreign tourists in Bali do not have high quality. And of course, we have that, what is the definition of high quality? People that stay for a long time and spend a lot of money, I guess. Luhut explained that so far, foreign tourist visits to Indonesia have experienced a rapid increase. Around 11.7 million foreign tourists come to Indonesia this year. This number is already above the level before the pandemic, he said. Unfortunately, despite promising huge economic benefits, the influx of foreign tourists in Bali has actually created problems for local residents. Well, finally somebody is admitting that, starting from local residents who are increasingly evicted from their own areas, losing jobs, and environmental damage to their island. Although it promises enormous and immediate benefits, we also experience the negative side of tourism from local communities being evicted or from environmental damage. And you can see Pak Luhut's speech. It's online. I came across it, but I lost the link to it, unfortunately. Pak Luhut said the government wants to maintain Bali as a paradise island. What happens in Bali, according to Pak Luhut, will be strictly evaluated by the government. We have to evaluate what is happening in Bali. We just don't want Bali to be visited by many foreign tourists, but where the quality is not good. Luhut said that he is having several meetings in Jakarta to evaluate Bali tourism. The plan is that there will be new regulations to select and limit foreigners in the future. Now, this is something interesting. Of course, this has been discussed before and went nowhere. His party has also assigned the Financial and Development Supervisory Agency, BPKB, to evaluate several tourism spots on the island of Bali. In addition, Bali will be used as a pilot project for quality tourism or quality tourism nationally. He said, we will take action. Hopefully next week we'll have a meeting in Jakarta to finalize his new regulations. Then BPKP will audit several areas in Bali to find out what really happened. He said what happened in Barcelona, Spain should not happen in Indonesia. And in his speech online, he was talking about partying, too much partying here in Bali, and not enough spiritual tourism. And of course, as I've said before, Bali's known for being a party island now. And Pak Luhut, in his online speech, talked about partying especially, and too much of Bali is going to partying, and we know where that is taking place predominantly. So Pak Luhut upset once again that we don't have quality tourists. Well, when you keep trying to bring in more and more tourists, what do you expect? You're going to get people that are going to behave, and you get people that are not going to behave. That's just the way the world works. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this meeting, or if it is just suddenly forgotten, and this is another one of Pak Luhut's off-the-cuff comments while he was giving a speech. So he talked about the disappearing forest in Bali and about what's happening with tourism, according to Pak Luhut. And there's a lot on development. Here's one. Increase tourist comfort. Denpasar City must add infrastructure to maximize tourism potential. Let's bring in more and more of those tourists. Denpasar City still faces a number of challenges to become a comfortable city for tourists. These challenges require solutions in the form of policies and supporting infrastructure to increase the level of comfort for tourists so that the tourism potential of Denpasar City can be maximized. Yes, let's make those tourists comfortable, because boy, they whine about a lot of stuff recently. The water's no good, this is no good, too much traffic. Well, that's true. This affirmation was reflected in the results of a discussion with the theme Maximizing Tourism Potential by Creating a Comfortable Denpasar. This discussion was held in Sanur at a hotel and involved many people from the tourism industry as well as some academics and health experts. According to the functional officer of Adyatama Tourism and Creative Economy of the Denpasar City Tourism Office, Ketut Suparta, the city of Denpasar has made significant improvements in recent years, as shown by various developments to support the holiday experience of tourists. It must be admitted, however, that a number of infrastructure improvements are not enough because of the rapid number of visits after COVID-19. Nevertheless, they are continuing to work with tourism actors to improve tourism country. Denpasar's challenges range from traffic jams, garbage, to air pollution. Because the movement of people is zigzag, means a lot of people coming in every day. A number of people are here who are not just residents but come from outside to work. So togetherness is needed to solve tourism problems in Denpasar City. BTB, Bali senior economist Trisno Nugroho, emphasized that Denpasar City must be able to maintain itself as a city of culture and tourism. According to him, all parties must maintain Sanur as the heart of tourism in the capital city of Bali. Trisno emphasized that it would be better to maintain the existing facilities as well as possible while fixing existing deficits. With the current conditions, the tourism industry is facing disruption and rapid development. One example is the changing culture of tourists, from how to book rooms digitally to their behavior when at tourist attractions. As a tourism industry player, Trisno agrees that tourism players also need to change in providing comfort. This change can start from small things such as providing fast internet service and adequate smoking facilities. Oh, that's interesting. Bali, especially Denpasar, must be improved to be even better. I propose to adopt regenerative tourism, not just sustainable tourism. If regenerative tourism improves, what is already good will be even better, so that tourists will not come just once but will want to come every year. He said, in Sanur, we get repeat tourists regularly. Dr. Tribhuti Bhaskara explained that the comfort factor has a significant influence on the holiday experience of tourists. Therefore, according to him, it is time for industry players to pay attention to this factor. Comfort, in this case, includes many things from security, cleanliness, to health. He argued that comfort is no less important in the provision of supporting infrastructure that can make tourists feel at home while they're on vacation in Denpasar. The provision of these facilities is important because the needs of tourists when on vacation vary greatly along with the development of the times. Health includes many aspects, like health facilities to clean air from pollution. For example, pollution from cigarette smoke can also affect the comfort of tourists. Regarding cigarette smoke pollution, Tribhuti said, currently there are alternative tobacco products that can be a solution because these products are not burned, so they do not produce smoke like cigarettes. Moreover, based on scientific studies, he said, alternative tobacco products have a lower risk than cigarettes. Therefore, it can also be an option for adult smokers who travel to Denpasar to improve their quality of life. I guess he's talking about vaping or e-cigarettes, I'm not sure. Okay, so that's on comfort for tourists. What about some more infrastructure development? Prabowo government to build toll road connecting South-North Bali, Pak Luhut. I assume they're talking about the road from Gili Manuk down to Mengwi. The incoming administration, led by President-Elect Prabowo, is posed to push more infrastructure development in Bali, including a toll road connecting northern and southern parts of the island, according to the Coordinating Maritime Affairs and Investment Minister Pak Luhut. To date, Bali's development has only focused on the southern region, which is known to be visited by many foreign tourists because of its proximity to the airport. In terms of infrastructure, I'm quite sure that we can make Bali be much better in the future. The President-elect has plans to connect North Bali to South Bali, Pak Luhut said the other day at an international quality tourism conference. Pak Luhut said a feasibility study for the toll road project is already underway. Okay, this project has been in the works for years now. This was on top of a feasibility study for the Bali Underground Light Rail Transit project, which would connect the airport to several tourist destinations in the south, not up here in the north, at least at this point. Pak Luhut continued, we also asked the World Bank to conduct a study on the underground LRT from the airport to Sanur and also Chamangi area. The LRT is expected to cost $876 million approximately during Phase 1A. Total cost could reach $20 billion or more with future phases, which would extend the track from the airport to Nusa Dua, Sanur, and Ubud. The government is also pushing electric vehicle adoption in Bali, both in the form of motorbikes and cars. As I've mentioned many times, the government has long been trying to build new infrastructure to encourage equal development in Indonesia's most popular tourist destination by building the long-delayed new airport, right? The completion of which was previously targeted by the end of 2024. When was that? And has been pushed back to 2026. Really? But you may remember, going back to the election time, the Vice President-Elect was here in Bali promising that they were going to get the new airport in North Bali done. As you may remember, the government removed the airport status as a national strategic project because they couldn't get anything together here, and that would have benefited the project through ease permits and land acquisition. According to the president director of the project to build the airport, he said construction of the new airport has received full support of the Balinese people, including leaders of Bali's Puri Agung. And of course, everyone says this is to spread out development and also to get rid of the traditional culture. And you may remember what Pak Luhut said in the earlier segment about protecting Balinese culture and putting an end to some of the things that have been going on here, which are not in line with what he thinks tourism should be in Bali. And as you may have picked up in the past, I've not always been in agreement with a lot of stuff that Pak Luhut has said over the years, but this is one of them that I do agree with. It's been said for years, we need to stop developing more hotels, more villas, and getting rid of our agricultural land, as I talked about in the first segment today. So lots of discussion about protecting Bali, protecting the forest in Bali, protecting the environment in Bali, protecting the people, especially people who are just starting families and who don't have a lot of money and are finding it more and more difficult to find places to live that they can afford and to get jobs which pay a decent wage. Okay, thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today. Stay safe, and I will see you next time.